Alrighty, well, the next section of the El Camino build is going to be the engine. You know, I got the brakes done, got the rear end rebuilt, got the control arms with the new bushings in the control arms. So the rolling chassis is there, it's done, it's ready to rock. Now I'm on to the engine and transmission and get all that in there. Now originally my plans were to put in a bigger cam, an aluminum intake. I was going to put the ceramic coated headers in it to try to help keep because it's going to be a daily driver, or not necessarily daily, but it's going to be driven often and driven in traffic and whatnot. I figured the ceramic coated headers are supposed to lower temperatures and under the hood and keep it from overheating or help keep it from overheating. But the thing is, you know, $500 for a set of headers plus all the exhaust, $300 for an intake manifold, you know, $200 and something for a camshaft, and you know, it just adds up. Plus carburetor, you know, there's another $400, you know, or depending on what you buy. I mean, let's just put it in the ballpark though. So I mean, I could spend quite a bit of money on a brand new engine trying to adapt it for myself. And the way that I see it is, you know, my cars aren't just build it and then be done with it, you know, and because that takes all the fun out of it for me. I like evolving projects. I like to always be tinkering on it and thinking about what I'm going to do next. You know, what's the next thing I'm going to do? You know, I'm going to get this manifold, and then I'll think about it for a long time before I actually do it, or I'll wait till I come across a good deal. Whatever. It's all part of my love for hot rodding. I love that end of it. So what I decided to do was just swap the cam. Because the engine's out, swapping the cam now is going to be easy. And I'll do the intake manifold another time. The stock exhaust manifolds I have been treated already. They were ready to go back on when I bought it from the guy that had the car. Also, the exhaust that was in here was in really good condition. He cut out the tailpipe, so I need to put new tailpipes on. But the rest is good. It's got flow masters in it and stuff, and I'm gonna run it. You know, I figure why get rid of all that stuff if I don't need to? If I got it, just run it, and later on down the road, I'll do what I want to do as I do it, you know, and so that's the plan as it sits. So, got the timing cover gasket, got the intake manifold gasket. I also bought the shift kit. I still haven't called them. I need to find out about the transmission, but I bought a shift kit in case I get to it. Silicone, of course. Now the camshaft that I decided to do this is an Elgin cam, or Elgin manufactured cam, and they make them and they rebox them for Summit Racing. So this was $95 for this cam here, and made by a reputable company, you know, and I'm gonna run it. I'm gonna see how that works. So this is what this cam is. It's the Summit 1066, and it has a 284 duration, 218 duration at 50. It has a 519 lift with a 110 lobe separation. So it should have a nice little, you know, mild rumble to it, little bit of a lope to it, and should, with the 110 lobe separation over the 115 lobe separation that the 350 horse cam had, it should put the power right in the mid-range, right where I'd like to have it, you know, low to mid-range. So I'm gonna go with it. I have to stop thinking about it because I'll overthink things, and the deal with camshafts is woo-wee, man. I can order one like I did. I ordered this one, and then, you know, 5 minutes later I'm thinking, oh, I should have gone bigger. I should have gone bigger, you know, and, you know, this is what I want. So I got to get it in there before I change my mind and order another one. My dog's trying to come in the shop. But anyways, that's what I'm going to do. That's my plan. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. All right, well, we'll get started here by taking off the valve covers. Get these off here, and then I'll get the intake manifold off. And then got to get the, now see, this was new. This engine was just done, just put together. It's never been started. So what I'm going to do, the reason I only have a cam, only bought a cam, was because this engine's never been started. So I'm going to use the lifters that are in here. And once you've started, once you've ran it, you don't want to use the lifters. You don't want to mix them up. Once they've broken into the cam, you know, you got to start these things up and you got to let them run for, you know, a certain amount of time at about 2,000 RPM to break them in. And I've broken in a couple of cams before, and you got to be careful with it. The last thing you want to do is flatten the cam, because then you could throw little pieces of metal all the way through your engine and waste your bearings and all of that. So, but this cam never being fired, or this engine never being fired before, I'm going to reuse these lifters. So that's what I'm going to do there. I've heard that you can take a new set of lifters and put them on an old cam. And I remember way back when, you know, you pull a cam out of an engine and you just throw it in another engine. Lifters went with it, you know, wherever, you know, sometimes you'd keep them in order, sometimes you didn't, and cams didn't go flat then, but the oil was different. You know, they had the zinc in the oil, and they don't have that in there anymore. You have to get it specifically. But you can see all the assembly. Whoops, excuse the hand. You can see the assembly lube all in the engine and all that. Put it back here. All right, so one time I was doing some work. I was doing some welding for a guy working in his shop. I'm not a professional welder. It was just a little piece job that he needed help with, so I was helping him out. And he told me I needed a wrench, and he says, go over to my toolbox and you can get it out of the wrench, and get a wrench out of there. I said, okay. And he goes, third drawer down, left-hand side of the drawer or whatever. And I thought, what? And I went over there and I pulled open that drawer and I looked to the left-hand side, and there was that 1/2-inch wrench, exactly where he said it was. And he told me, he goes, you know, because I thought it was a little bit ridiculous how organized his toolbox was. And he told me, he said, you know, the thing is, if I'm missing a wrench, I know it. If I need a wrench, I know exactly where it is. And so one of the things that I tried to do, and I talked about in one of my other videos, was how I like to come out here in the shop for a little personal time and just kind of relax and work on stuff. And, you know, I'm in no hurry because I'm not punching a clock, because this is all my stuff I'm working on for myself. And it's nice to not have to look for tools. You know exactly where they are, you know, and that's why I got, you know, so many toolboxes, and that's why I got the tools that I have, you know, and I try to keep things, you know, as orderly as possible. That way I can just come over to the box and I can grab what I need, and there you have it, you know. So that's one of the real benefits of that, you know. Listening to other people's advice is always nice, you know. I mean, I like to hear what other people have to say, whether it's, you know, positive. Sometimes people say negative things, or some people are just some people are jerks, you know. But I always tell my kids, you know, that you could learn something from anybody, you know, even a guy that's a total jerk that you don't really care for. You could still learn something from him, you know. worst case scenario, or, you know, you learn how not to be a human, you know, but you can still learn something from anybody, you know, and never stop learning and always take advice. That's what I try to do. You know, I'll listen to anybody. I'm not going to do what anybody tells me, but I'm going to listen to them, you know, so that's my little word of wisdom, I guess. So, all right, well, I'm going to go ahead and finish taking this manifold off now that I'm done rambling, and I'll cut to that, so see you in a minute. All right, so we already got the valve covers off, got the intake manifold off, water pump, timing cover, fuel pump has to come off. I already got all the lifters out of it. I taped over these are oval port heads. I taped over them because I like to drop stuff and I don't want to drop anything inside the heads. Everything's ready to go. I figured I'd just go ahead and pop off this cam or timing cover or timing chain. It's really tight. It hasn't been run before, so it's, and I'm not prying hard. I'm just giving it a little bit of help. Before I pulled it apart, let me get that chain off of there. I lined up the dots. This one has kind of threw me for a loop because I couldn't find the mark, but it's actually got one up here on the top. So line them up. Doesn't really matter now because it's all coming apart, but when you put it back together, it's got to be lined up. And now that the chain's off, I can put the, it's hard for me to talk and do things at the same time. I could put the timing gear back on it and kind of use it as a handle. If I can get the threads to go, there we go. All right. Get it on the rest of the way. This is where you want to take your time, you know. You got to be really careful with it. There's a show on TV I watch, and there's this one guy that does this, and boy, he just beats these cams in and out. Every time I see that, I'm like, why are you letting that guy put the cam in? But whatever. Maybe it's okay like that. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a professional. Like this cam's been used in there before. It's got numbers on the back of it, they all do, and I'll look that up and see what it is. But I was told it was a 350 horse cam, so I have no reason to doubt it. The guy I bought this car from he was a super cool dude, straight up. It was really neat because a lot of times, you know, I had to drive down to Sacramento, which is about 6 hours from where I live, and the guy had showed me pictures and he knew what he was doing. You know, every picture that he took and sent me made perfect sense. You know, it was all the stuff that I would have wanted to see, you know, and he told me, he said, you know, if I was going to buy this car, these are the things I would want to see. And, but no, super cool dude. He was real straight up with me, and man, you don't always run across guys like that, you know, especially when you're talking about something like this, you know. There was only, you know, just under 5,200 of these cars made. And this one's in really good shape, and you know, there's a lot of people out there that aren't so honest, you know, and you know, this car wasn't necessarily cheap, and so to have a dude deal with you straight up, man, you know, that was really, really good. If you ever see these videos, Steve, you're a cool dude. So anyways, this is out. I'm gonna go ahead and get the other one ready to go in. All right, so I'm about ready to put the new cam in. It comes with a tube of, you know, break-in grease or whatever, but basically it's this right here, Moly Graph. It's a Moly Graphite high pressure grease that I've used on all the cams that I've broken in. That's the machine shop guy, he recommended using that over anything else, and I've used it on all the cams that I've broken in, and I haven't had any problems. So that's what we're going to use. So let me grab the cam. And what I did was I cleaned off the journals. There's a coating on the lobe, so you don't really want to clean that off of there. And I'll just kind of grease it up as I go. Otherwise, it makes a real big mess. Put a little bit on the timing gear here too, or the distributor gear. Now you got the thing about this Moly is when you get it in there, you know, and you could do too much if you really tried, but really, a little bit too much is probably just enough. So. When you go and drain your oil the first time after you break in this, you get all this sludge looking stuff. You're like, oh crap, but it's just this Moly stuff. You want to be on video, Ben?
I don't mind.
Huh?
I don't mind.
Because the video's running right now. You want to say hi?
Oh, hi.
That's my son, Ben, coming to take tools. And my dog. All right, well, you get the point. I'll keep on doing this. All right, so we got the cam in, and we put a little bit of Loctite on the cam bolts. Last thing you want is a cam bolt dropping out. That would be a mess. But again, I got the bolts, you know, there was a notch up here and then they're lined up straight. The cam went in really nice. So no reason it wouldn't. I mean, there was already a cam in there, so. Alrighty, there we go. Chain's real tight, but it's a brand new chain. They're real tight when you first put them on. It doesn't take long at all for those things to loosen up. You know, when you have a brand new motor, or at least a motor with a new timing chain, when you shut it off, it'll just that's it. It doesn't it's like instant when you shut it off. That's because the timing chain is so tight. But all right, so I'm gonna throw the lifters back in, the top end back all together, and we'll be ready to put it back in the car. All right, well, lifter's just gonna go back in the way they came out. There's grease on the cam lobes. I'll just throw a little bit more on there from the sides, but it really, there's so much grease on the cam lobes that it's not a big deal. And like I said, these whoops, see what I mean about dropping stuff? I get in a hurry, I guess, and things will slip out of my hands. But like I said, these have not been used before. They've only been set in here. So I don't have a problem rerunning these. Interesting thing, a small block Chevy and a big block Chevy have use the same size lifter. Of course the cam's a different size, but the lifter, it's the same lifter though. Now, you got two different lengths of push rod. So your intake is going to be a short one, and your exhaust is going to be a long one. So that's another long one. Intake, which one's that? Short one. Long one. Wait, that's a... wrong. I got that in the wrong one. Whoop. There we go. I missed one and messed me all up. And the long one. There we go. And then of course the rocker arms on top of that. I'll get those on, and then we'll come back and adjust the valves. All right, so I got the camshaft in, got all the lifters in, got the rocker arms all sitting on there, the push rods in the right spot, two different size push rods, intake and exhaust have different length on a big block. Timing chain is in, and I verified, I got in there and made double, triple sure that both of the dots on the upper gear, the cam gear, and the crank gear pointing to each other. That's on. Put Loctite blue on the cam bolts so they won't back out. I went ahead and put the timing cover back on and the balancer on there so that way I could turn it over. Now this is a hydraulic cam, so it's supposed to have half a churn. I mean, I've heard from an old timer that I race with, he told me quarter churn is all you want to do on a hydraulic cam. I've heard people say do a full churn on a hydraulic cam. I've always done half a churn. And from what I understand, if you do more than about half a churn, what happens is you start to put the plunger down inside of the lifter, and when it goes down inside there, it doesn't bleed or build pressure properly or something like that. I'm not sure, I don't really know. That's just something I heard. I've always set my valves, my hydraulic valves at half a churn past 0 lash. It's always worked for me, and that's how I do it. I used to work with this lady one time that used to say, there's more than one ways to skin a cat, and that's a true statement, kind of gruesome, but it's a true statement when it comes to things like adjusting valves. People have all different manners. You could set your engine in 2 different positions and be able to adjust half your valves, and set it in the other position, be able to adjust the other half of the valves. I don't do it like that. I do it 1 cylinder at a time, and I turn the motor over a bunch of times, making sure that I'm on the base circle of the lobe, so that way I can get an accurate adjustment. That's how I do it, and it's worked for me for a lot of years, so I'm not gonna change. So we can go ahead and do that, but we'll get into that. Let me move the camera here a wee bit. All right, so on the big block, it actually has holes in the lifter valley here where you can actually see the cam in there, which is gonna make it a little bit easier for adjusting, getting on the end, getting on the base circle of the cam. So like I said, you can turn it around a bunch of times. It don't matter. I mean, it's going to get turned a bunch of times when you run the engine anyway. So, I mean, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to start with this over here, number one, and I'm going to let it run through its whole thing. There's my exhaust valve opening right now. Now exhaust valve is closing. Oops. Because the intake is just starting to close. So this one here, what I'll do here, I'll run it down. Okay, start to feel a little bit of drag on the push rod. Okay. A little bit of drag. Half a turn. Exhaust is set. Now, I'll keep spinning. Now, the intake is coming off of the open and it's down to the base, bottom of the base circle. Now, I'll go through that one, run that one down. All right. A little bit of drag, get it down to half, try to find a nice spot, half a turn. All right, number one is set. From there, I'll go on to the next one. All right, exhaust on number three. And what I'll do is I'm just gonna go ahead and go through one bank. Then I'll come back and I'll do the other one. It's really easy to know if I leave off and go inside and get myself a sandwich or something like that, or if I hear the dogs chasing something and I need to find out what it is, I could walk away and I come back, you know exactly where you're at because you're just going in line, you know, so that's how I do it. That's how I've always done it. I mean, I've adjusted them before running in the car with the cutaway valve cover. What a mess. You know, I prefer to have it shut off and just do it like this. It's the cleanest way to do it. Well, I mean, obviously you're not going to do it running while it's sitting on an engine stand. But anyways, that's how I do it. So I'll go ahead and get this done and then we'll move on to the next step. All right, so I got the valves all adjusted, got the valve covers on, got the intake manifold on, got water pump and brackets and everything that was on it before I got back on there again. Didn't take any video of it because I kind of got on a bit of a roll, and you know, I showed a little bit of video pulling it apart anyway, so we're just gonna go with that. My next spot from here is gonna be probably do the shift kit and the transmission. I'll probably do that next, and then we'll put the engine and transmission together and put it in the car. And man, it's getting close. It's getting close to going. You know, I bought this car about a year ago, and it's been sitting in here while I kind of recuperated from buying it, you know, and I just kind of let it sit and sit and sit, and then finally I just got a hair to get in it, and here we are. I'm going to be hearing it run pretty soon, so I'm really super excited about that. Hopefully everybody else is too, and we'll go from there. So make sure to subscribe and to like and give me a comment if you'd like, and we'll see you next video. Thank you.